let me just be very clear here, okay? Like, Africa does not need another fintech app. You guys, like, I can't stress this enough anymore. What Africa needs is boring, essential businesses that manage logistics, that move good, and more importantly, that prints cash quietly. Stop trying to reinvent the wheel. Stop trying to be a pioneer. Stop. Just pick one thing that the mass population consumes daily and become a supplier of it. And of AI, your business plan should take you 1 minute to generate. The floor of failure, like in order to fail, has dropped drastically because we have so much information available to us to help us discern if this is a good idea or a bad idea. What we lack, even in the era of AI, is executors. I see this a lot in Congo. Like a lot of Indian family, what they do is they import manufacturing parts for cars, and they do the assembling locally. Just your idea was too complex for my brain. He's like, no, I'm in logistics. I'm in trading. It's a very simple model of supply and demand. Your idea was too complex. Add this, that, but like start with WhatsApp. Let people take a picture of their prescription. Done. Like, why even building an app for that? So that was a lesson learned, right? Okay. Full on eating a waffle. Mm. You guys, there's nothing like Kinshasa waffles, you guys. I love it. It's harder. It's kind of like these waffles that they sell on the street, but I get them made like in big chunks. I'm obsessed. I love them. So simple. And by the way, I make mine with cassava flour, game changer. And I put some bananas in there, or sometimes I put coconuts. So good. All right. Sorry, guys. I was in the middle of answering a bunch of emails. But what I was thinking about today was so in today's episode of Noemi and Co., the Diaspora Playbook podcast, we are going to talk about this topic that I'm very passionate about. I'm going to explain why some of the wealthiest people in the African continent, you guys, I've met these dudes and some women, they don't do pitch decks. By the way, I stopped doing pitch decks. Eh? So if you want to invest in my company, I will not send you a pitch deck. I refuse to do pitch decks. These people don't even have LinkedIn profiles. They don't even want to be known, okay? But these people are sleeping very well with plenty of money, okay? And the road to success in this continent is real. I'm sorry, like the resilience of wealth in Africa, it's not in apps wanting to disrupt. You guys, it's as simple as a 40 feet container that's filled with things that people actually need day to day. And while you're chasing Silicon Valley app, which by the way, look at how much VC funding has like dropped in Africa in the last 3-4 years by 40% because there's not enough exits. You're chasing that. Meanwhile, the smart money is in timeless, boring, essential goods that move stuff in to the country and out of the country. That's it. This is the playbook that we're going to talk about today. All right, you may not like my take on boring essential businesses. I'm the person who launched many tech things when I first moved back to Sub-Saharan Africa years ago. And why I did that, there's many reasons. I truly believe that tech is needed and it's a great model for scaling things. It's a great model for launching something very cheap in your bedroom, especially now we have things like vibe coding, Replit, and Claude taking over WordPress, thank the Lord. But I was in this delusion that what this continent, especially in a country like Congo, needed was tech, when in reality, in the context of Sub-Saharan Africa, many economies like Congo are still on cash. The economies that are not on cash, like Kenya with M-Pesa, the majority of the population lives quite poor. But don't mistake it for not a business opportunity, because I would argue it's the mass that consumes the most. So if you're able to bring in goods that they consume already, stop trying to reinvent the wheel, stop trying to be a pioneer, stop. Just pick one thing that the mass population consumes daily and become a supplier of it. And I think this is the first thing I wanted to talk about. And as always, I'm going to look at my laptop because I take notes and because I like to multitask. I'm answering emails as I'm doing this podcast. This is my ADHD. But number one problem that I see often, and I've suffered from this a lot, is this obsession and allure for the sexy startup idea. You guys, like the glamour trap is real. I think those of us at the diaspora, like I grew up in Canada, lived in California for a little bit. I glamour. My dream was to be the founder of Silicon Valley tech startup. You come up with an idea, you become the tech unicorn. It gets a crazy valuation, which no one can explain to you how things are valuated. It's often based on traction and speculation. Your company is worth $1 bajillion, especially today if you slap the word AI on it. Someone gives you millions of dollars, you exit, you make history. We all want to be the next Zuckerberg. We all want to be the next freaking Tesla, even if you don't like Elon. Like, we all aspire for that dream. And I think while that's cute and you want to be the next Uber, I think the mismatch is that that model of Silicon Valley, what we don't talk about enough, and I wish there was more conversation on this, is the Silicon Valley model is based on a stable economy. It's based on an economy where finance, infrastructure, everything has been put in place. So to reach scale is a lot easier. And I would also argue, by the way, for the Silicon Valley model of tech startups, there's a high failing rate that we don't talk about. When people fail in Silicon Valley, which applies to tech across the board. Like I'm Canadian, one of our most successful story is Shopify. It started, I believe, in Vancouver and went to the US and blew up. But how many of those stories have occurred? If you look at the statistics, I'm pretty sure it's less than 5% of tech unicorns have made it. The rest have failed. And we don't talk about that enough. We talk about the ones that have succeeded. And I really think the problem with that, it's a mismatch because the conditions that worked in the West with those tech apps are not in sub-Saharan Africa. Like the reality is there's an opportunity cost that many of us are not factoring in with these Silicon Valley dreams that we're pursuing in sub-Saharan Africa. Like the years and capitals that you're spending chasing these dreams that you could have been spending it on mastering a physical supply chain that actually works and is needed, be my guest, quantify that. So I think with that, I really think is the solution that I'm proposing to that. Let me know what you think in the comments. I really think we need to embrace the boring, essential businesses that are solving the most simple and yet painful problems. Ladies and gentlemen, the more painful a problem, the more simple the solution, you will make crazy amount of money. Because the $1 billion question that nobody's asking is what is something that is expensive, scarcity, or low quality here, but is very cheap, plentiful, and high quality somewhere else. When you're able to ask yourself that question, what happened is you've come up with a very endless list. You guys, the amount of things that you can go, like on top of my head, I'm obsessed with this one, is literally hospital gauze, hospital lab gloves, like the ones that you make, the blue ones you make with 3D printers, tomato paste, school desk that you can make with wood or chalk, school chalk, like print paper, construction nails. Like you guys, the list is endless here of things that fit that category. And I think the new heroes of Africa that we don't talk about enough, I know it's going to rub some of you the wrong way, but I really think it's the 55-year-old Lebanese that's been in this continent for 3, 4 generations, or even one generation, but has been here for 30 years. The Indian that's like 40 years old, that literally all these people are doing, they're traders. They're importing goods for the last 30 years. They did the painful stuff that us fellow black diaspora Africans don't want to do. They got robbed. They dealt with corruption. They dealt with poor infrastructure. They dealt with electricity not working. The blood, sweat, and tears. 30 years. And today, these are business mogul that are unshakable. You are not going to, like, what are you going to disrupt with those guys? And here's another joke, by the way. This is where I'm like, oh man, Noemi, the learning curve. I had come up with this like pharma app idea for Congo, Aluka, where I wanted to deliver drugs to people. While the idea was sound and nice and beautiful, it flopped before I even launched it. So I go up to this like Indian business mogul in Congo. I have mad respect for him. He owns like a bunch of hospital, a bunch of clinics, and a bunch of pharmacies. And I was like, I want to pilot this e-pharma idea with your pharmaceutical company and deliver people drugs. Like they get to send us their prescription on the app. We then coordinate with your pharmaceutical company, and then we make the delivery by motorbike. You guys, many ideas there failed. One, this Indian mogul, he's in like everything from logistics to pharma. Really, like if you follow the Indian playbook, which I did a video on that, it tends to be the same industries that many Indians get into when they go to other markets. And so this guy, you could just see he's losing interest. He just said yes to like please me, and he's friends with my parents. So I felt like he just looked at me like, oh, cute little girl. She wants to start this idea. She just moved from Canada. The reason why that idea failed on so many levels, most people in Congo, the mass, I would argue, is about 80 to 90% of the population. They consume counterfeit drugs. Whether or not you like it or not, counterfeit drugs tend to be cheaper. And a lot of drugs now that are counterfeit, a lot of them are made in India for dirt cheap. And the molecules is actually quite spot on when you compare it to the molecule of like known drugs like Advil and so forth. So they are like over the counter drugs. They've cheapened out the molecule formula in India. So they're able to sell here for dirt cheap. Now you may question some of the ethicals of some of these drugs. That's not the point. The point is a lot of these drugs made in India are becoming spot on. So they are able to produce a drug that in Pharmacie de 30 Juin, which is like a bougie pharmacy in Gombe in the downtown Kinshasa that caters more to the affluent, a patent drug that has like a brand name that comes from Belgium, so it sells trust to the 5% elite. That drug will cost you 40 to 50 bucks. The same drug coming from India, whatever, it's about $1. So that you look at it, the 5% elites will be the only one that will pay for a drug to be delivered to their home. Because I had to charge like a 3% fee. We really were just making our money in this app idea. In the service will be ballpark about 3% of every transaction. So that can ballpark to about $3 for us to break even and be viable and scale. The person that's like the mass, the 90% who's poor, they're getting a $1 drug around the corner, and there's pharmacies in every corner. Whether or not I think the drugs that they're buying is not good quality, blah, blah, girl, they're trying to survive. And if a pharmaceutical drug, a malaria drug is sold to them for $1.50 and it's available around their corner, why would they ever pay for a bike to be delivered to their home? And the elite 5%, horrible markets to serve in Congo because the moment there's political instability, we saw it recently, they flee. Number two, most of them, because they want discretion and they want privacy, they don't get their drugs here. They get their drugs when they travel overseas. How often do I get my drugs when I go to Canada or the US? 99% of the time. So the idea failed. And I went back to this Indian business mogul. I was like, what went wrong with that idea? You didn't seem that keen onto it, whatever. He was like, that's just it. Your idea was too complex for my brain. He's like, no, I'm in logistics. I'm in trading. It's a very simple model of supply and demand. Your idea was too complex. Add this, that, but like start with WhatsApp. Let people take a picture of their prescription. Done. Like, why even building an app for that? So that was a lesson learned, right? And I think this goes back to embracing the boring and essential business. And I really think the play here is don't try to reinvent the wheel. Don't try to be a pioneer. Be someone that just improves an existing system. All you're doing is removing friction. And I actually think the best ideas in this continent, essential businesses, look at what's already working. What are people already consuming? And start with that. Believe it or not. I actually start with that because what that shows you is people are already paying for it. It may not excite you, but you have to ask yourself the question, are you building a business for excitement or to make money? That's for you to answer, right? I think number 2 point that I wrote here is this one is a problem that I see across the diaspora. You guys, this has to stop. Like, I'm going to be honest. Some of you that email me or message me, I'm very direct. If you consume any of my content, even my Substack newsletter, I am blunt. My LinkedIn, I'm super blunt. Some people like it, some people hate it. But you need to know your audience. What I see a lot in the diaspora, this is a problem number 2, is overcomplication and analysis paralysis. Like, this is a serious problem in the Black diaspora. Like, we spent 6 months writing a convoluted 50-page business plan, registering the perfect company name, designing a logo. We want everything to be perfect before we make a move. Like, what? Like, what? Like, the reality is this. The market in which you're trying to penetrate doesn't care for your plan. The market that you're trying to penetrate into, all it cares about is the goods. All it cares about is This person needs it and you're supplying it. Ladies and gentlemen, you have to learn to stop over planning and execute. And the reason why I brought up the point of like some of you don't like my bluntness, many of you reach out to me. I've trained my staff that answer my messages to have a filter. I'm like, you need to know how to read this person's message and know that this person is not going to execute. They just want to dream about the idea of doing, but they're never going to do it. And it's harsh to hear that. But at some point, we need to realize what the African continent needs from the diaspora is pragmatic builders and doers. And guys, I really think that the stalling, I think, is often dressed up as diligence. Oh, I'm doing my diligence. No, 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 no. Because I know a lot of you don't even do market research. And I'm so sorry. In the era of AI, your business plan should take you 1 minute to generate. The floor of failure, like in order to fail, has dropped drastically because we have so much information available to us to help us discern if this is a good idea or a bad idea. What we lack, even in the era of AI, is executors. And you guys, I wrote this down here. Like, I think the solution, I really think, is, and I talked about this in my previous video, you guys pick one simple process, one simple problem, and solve it. So I'm going to give you really an idea here. This is a challenge for those of you listening. I'm challenging you to start with one container. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that. Why the container model? Yes, in an ideal world, all sub-Saharan African countries will be having manufacturing plants, will be producing, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is, if you look at the data, most African countries heavily depend on importing. You may not agree with it, but at this current stage, your job is just to build the muscle of doing. So here's what I want you to do. Pick one product, school chalkboard, tomato paste, cooking oil, you name it. Find a supplier on Alibaba, Turkey, and please, when looking for a supplier, remove friction. Don't overcomplicate it by being like, I need to go to China and check out these suppliers. Like, calm down. Right now, you just need to build a muscle for executing. So what you're doing is you're going to import something. You're going to learn to deal with forwarders. You're going to learn to deal with buyers. Take into account with this pilot of one product, one container, one import, one cycle, you're likely going to lose 20% of your money in this thing. See it as an education. Rather than spending 100K on an MBA or 200K, whatever, you are losing 20% into this idea. Why? You need to build the muscle of execution, of risk taking, of data collection. And I think with that, what happens is you become more knowledgeable, and I'm so sorry, far more valuable than anybody with an MBA, because MBA from INSEAD, MBA from Stanford ain't gonna teach you about dealing with customs in a port in DRC. They're gonna teach you SWOT analysis, which, by the way, GPT can also teach you, right? Problem number 3, okay? This one I had to write it down. Like, we underestimate the margin, like the thin margin and high volume. Let me explain this why. I think many of us in sub-Saharan Africa, due to, and I talked about this in the previous video, I think, have battled with ongoing traumas, with chronic stress, that we then make very impulsive decisions, and it turns into this get quick rich scheme, like get quick rich scheme, meaning that we only want the business that makes you 100K right away. So if you are in a business where you're gonna make only $2 profit per bag, this is sort of like a boring empire. How long is that gonna take me? Meanwhile, the math of some of the largest billionaires here in sub-Saharan Africa is quite simple. Sell 50,000 bags. I did the math here. 50,000 bags. That's $100,000 profit. Do that for 4 products. That's 400K. Reinvest, scale, and this is how trading houses are built. I'm just going to repeat that because I went really fast. Sell 50,000 bags of something, and that bag is, say, $2 a profit. Okay, say that profit is after revenue, right? You remove revenue minus cost, so that's your profit. So say that it's $10 the bag that you're selling it for, and it costs you about $8 a bag in terms of expenses, this documentation. You're really walking away with $2 a bag. So 50,000 bags, $2 profit. That's 100K profit. If you do that for 4 products that are in high demand, and that's ideal because you get to consolidate in a container, or each of you, if you're a group of 4 people, each of you have different products so that you can fill up one container. That's 4 products, and that's 400K. Like, the beauty of this is that these margins are defensible. So what I mean by that, like, no VC startup in history will undercut you of a 10% margin. This business model that I'm talking about is built on grits, which is perseverance and like vision, right? Like, it's built on a moat of operational efficiency. You guys, like, I had to write this down. Like, the key thing with this that I really think the reason why I'm bringing up this idea of like thin margins with volume equals power, right? Thin margin plus volume equals power, especially in the continent of sub-Saharan Africa, is because I really think I'm so passionate about the subject. It allows you to build vertical integration. Now, vertical integration, this is where you become the importer or exporter. If you're in the export business, like I am with honey, you become the king and queen of the trades. This is not a new model, right? Like, love or hate him, the Rockefeller, when homie started Rockefeller, and he's like the tycoon of oil history in the United States until this day. Rockefeller, that's what he did. He did the vertical integration and he undercut all his competition and had monopoly. You may not agree with that approach, and there's some unethical aspect of it, but love it or hate it, vertical integration works. How it works is actually very simple. So you start with importing school chairs or school chalkboard, and then you import the desk, and then you partner with the local workshop in DRC to assemble the parts. So I see this a lot in Congo. Like, a lot of Indian family, what they do is they import manufacturing parts for cars, and they do the assembling locally. And why that's actually extremely smart is because there's actually exemption of laws in DRC for importing parts. If you import a car, you pay a huge hefty fee at the Matadi port. But what people don't know, if you import the parts and you get to assemble it locally with local engineers, it's actually very cost effective. People don't think about that. So what that means is that, going back to the school board idea, school, desk, chalk, you import the material, you find a local would make a workshop to assemble the parts for you, and then you get the contract to supply the entire thing to schools and districts. So now you own the entire like school furniture category. And ultimately, what I thought about, and I had to write this down, this speaks to the Chinese model. So the Chinese, actually, what they do, they didn't just stop at importing. So what they've done in sub-Saharan Africa, they moved into wholesale, then retail, then light assembly, then manufacturing. And Indians are now doing the same playbook. And now you end up owning the entire supply chain. And so, as a fellow diaspora, I think what you need is, again, you need to master import. And I know some of you are going to be like, well, we can't just keep depending on importing. You guys, I'm begging you this year, as people, let's stop with emotional rants and let's move towards being pragmatic and builders and execution. You may not like the realities of the current African ecosystem. I'm so sorry, most of us don't. But there is a reality at play that your emotions have to be out the door. Start with importing, because the reality is domestically the market is not able to meet that demand, and the infrastructure is just not there. Look at the history of Dangote. It comes from a wealthy family, but Dangote started the cement business that way. He was importing, and then it validated the demand. He started doing the manufacturing for it, and by then he had all the contacts of the biggest cement buyers, and he was able to supply them. And he's done the same thing in every single one of his pillars. It's a model that works. I know so many people in DRC that import palm oil, that import rice, that import maize, and the whole play is only a few of them are able to produce that stuff locally. And what they produce, they are so much demand that they're not able to supply. So for you as a diaspora, your path is just to master the import. And ultimately what that means is that you get to control the last mile of the delivery. And that's where you build your strong network of buyers and relationships. And you become the person that controls the deal flow, because you get to brand that relationship, and then you're financing it with your customers. You're layering it with the boring layer, and you're building an entire empire via the value chain. And that is vertical integration. And so I know it's a lot, and I get very passionate about these subjects, but ultimately, like, What I'm trying to say with this episode today, if you're listening and watching, I'm begging you, we need to stop chasing this tech unicorn. We need to stop chasing these home runs, being the pioneer, the only one to do it. You need to start being consistent in hitting single reoccurring revenues and success milestone. Okay. Like the fortune is in the foundation that you're building, not in the stories you're telling, not in the jargon, not in your dreams. How many of us have been on phone calls with fellow diaspora members, people, potential partners who sell us dreams, never execute? We are tired. 2026, we want deliverables. And I think as fellow Africans, we are sleeping on the boring essential businesses. I've been in this continent full time, full time. I've come many times, full time for 4 or 5 years now. And let me tell you something, the amount of people that I see building wealth here in the boring essential businesses, it is mind boggling. Like in Kinshasa, in the middle of traffic, the tissue paper, I have so many in my bag. This tissue paper that costs 500 francs, which is like a quarter of a dollar, it's like 25 cents. They sell like hotcakes. You go to, I think, Dakar, Senegal, in the middle of the road, you sold a bunch of nuts, a bunch of fruits. I'm like, who owns the farm that makes these things and sell to these street vendors? These are the things people consume daily. And how many of us diaspora members are in those spaces? But instead, we want to just the next tech thing because it's fun, it's sexy, and I'm sorry, I don't get me wrong, I love fun and sexy, and I love to look cute, but we're here to make money. We're here to build legacies. And I really need every single one of us of the African diaspora to wake up a bit and stop dreaming and start executing. Make sure to subscribe. Have a good day.